He told her she was an embarrassment. He told her that her cheap clothes and quiet demeanor would ruin his reputation among the elite. For 5 years, Marcus hid his wife Lana in the shadows, treating her like a maid in their own home while he played the bachelor billionaire in public. But on the night of the Obsidian Gala, the most exclusive event in Manhattan, Marcus made a fatal mistake. He thought he left his shame at home. He didn't realize that the woman walking down the grand staircase, dripping in diamonds and silencing the entire room, wasn't a stranger. It was the wife he never bothered to truly know, and she was about to destroy him. The rain battered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse at 432 Park Avenue, one of the most prestigious addresses in New York City. Inside, the silence was louder than the storm. Lana Sterling sat at the long mahogany dining table, her hands folded neatly in her lap. The dinner she had spent 3 hours preparing, a delicate herb-crusted rack of lamb with truffle risotto, was cold. The candles had burned down to nubs, their wax pooling onto the silver candelabra she had polished that morning. It was 10:45 p.m. She wasn't worried. She was used to it. This was the routine. Her husband, Marcus Sterling, the CFO of the chaotic but lucrative Titan Investment Group, lived on a schedule that did not include her. When the heavy oak front door finally clicked open, Lana didn't flinch, but her heart gave that familiar, painful squeeze. She heard the heavy footsteps, the jingle of keys being tossed into a crystal bowl, and the sharp exhale of a man who believed the weight of the world rested on his bespoke Italian suit. Marcus walked into the dining room, loosening his silk tie. He didn't look at her. He didn't look at the food. He walked straight to the wet bar in the corner and poured himself a generous glass of Macallan 25. "You're still up," he said, his back to her. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. "I made dinner, Marcus," Lana said softly. Her voice was gentle, a stark contrast to the sharp, modern angles of the apartment. "It's your favorite." Marcus turned, taking a sip of the scotch, his eyes scanning her with a look that sat somewhere between boredom and disdain. He looked at her simple grey cardigan, her hair tied back in a loose, practical bun, and her face devoid of makeup. "I ate with clients at Le Bernardin," he said dismissively. "Clear this away. The smell of grease is giving me a headache." Lana stood up, her face impassive. There was no grease. The food was gourmet, cooked with techniques she had learned years ago in a life she no longer spoke about. But she didn't argue. She never argued. "How was the meeting?" she asked, stacking the porcelain plates. "Fine. We closed the deal with the Anderson account," Marcus muttered, walking past her toward the master bedroom. He paused in the doorway, pulling a thick, cream-colored envelope from his inner jacket pocket. He tossed it onto the side table. "Oh, that arrived for us today." Lana wiped her hands on her apron and walked over to the envelope. It was heavy, textured cardstock with gold leaf embossing. Her breath hitched. The Obsidian Gala wasn't just a party. It was the event of the decade, hosted by Julian Thorne, the elusive tech mogul who rarely made public appearances. It was a night where alliances were formed and fortunes were made. It was taking place this Saturday at the Met. "It says Mr. and Mrs. Sterling." Lana read her finger, tracing the calligraphy. A rare spark of excitement lit up her eyes. "Marcus, are we going—" Marcus stopped unbuttoning his shirt and let out a short, cruel laugh. He turned around, his handsome face twisted into a sneer. "We," he repeated, as if the word was a joke in a language he didn't speak. "Lana, look at yourself." Lana froze. "What do you mean?" Marcus walked closer, invading her personal space, smelling of expensive scotch and the lingering scent of a perfume that definitely wasn't hers, something floral like jasmine and tuberose. "This is the Obsidian Gala, Lana. It is a gathering of the most powerful people in the Western Hemisphere, senators, movie stars, industry titans. And you want to go wearing that cardigan, with your hair like a librarian. I can buy a dress, Lana whispered, looking down. I can get my hair done. I know how to behave in society, Marcus. You know how to clean a house, Marcus corrected her coldly. You know how to balance a checkbook. You do not know how to command a room. You have zero presence, Lana. You're a mouse. If I took you there, you'd stand in the corner, clutching a glass of water, looking terrified. You'd embarrass me. The words cut deep, but they were familiar wounds. Since their marriage 5 years ago, Marcus had systematically chipped away at her confidence. When they met, he had been charming, ambitious, but struggling. She had supported him, used her savings to help him start his portfolio, and managed his life so he could focus on work. But as his bank account grew, his respect for her vanished. He wanted a trophy, but he had married a partner. And now that he didn't need a partner, he resented her for not being a trophy. I am your wife, Lana said, her voice trembling slightly. The invitation is addressed to both of us. People ask where I am, Marcus. They wonder why they never see me. I tell them you're shy, Marcus said smoothly, turning back to the bedroom. I tell them you suffer from social anxiety and prefer the quiet life. I protect you, Lana. I protect you from being laughed at. He vanished into the bedroom, shouting back over his shoulder. I'm going alone. I've already arranged for my assistant to handle the RSVP. Don't wait up on Saturday. It'll be a late night. Lana stood alone in the hallway, the golden invitation heavy in her hand. She stared at the closed door of the bedroom. He was ashamed of her. He truly believed she was nothing. She walked back to the kitchen and scraped the cold lamb into the trash. As the garbage disposal whirred, grinding the food away, Lana's expression shifted. The submissive, sad look evaporated, replaced by a cold, calculating steeliness that Marcus had never seen. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. It was an old model, one Marcus allowed her to have. She dialed a number that wasn't saved in her contacts, a number she had memorized a lifetime ago. It rang once, twice. Bonjour, a voice answered. It was deep rasping and sounded like it belonged to a man who had smoked cigars for 40 years. Henri, Lana said. Her voice had changed. The timid housewife tone was gone, replaced by a crisp, authoritative cadence. It's Elara. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Mademoiselle Elara. My God, it has been 6 years. We thought you were dead, or worse, living in New Jersey. A tiny, genuine smile touched Lana's lips. I need a favor, Henri. I need a dress, and not just any dress. I need something that screams war. For when? Saturday, the Obsidian Gala. Impossible, Henri gasped. That is 3 days away. My atelier is booked out for months. The Duchess of Cambridge is waiting for a fitting. Henri. Lana said, her voice dropping an octave, smooth and dangerous. Remember who saved your reputation during the Fashion Week disaster of 2018. Remember who fixed the stitching on the finale piece 5 minutes before the runway. A long pause, then a sigh of resignation and delight. I will clear my schedule. Come to the back door of the Soho studio tomorrow at midnight. Bring your measurements, and Elara. Yes. It is good to hear your voice. The world has been very beige without you. Lana hung up. She looked at her reflection in the dark window. Marcus saw a mouse. He had forgotten that mice can chew through the wiring of a house and burn it to the ground. The next 2 days were a masterclass in deception. Lana played the part of the dejected wife perfectly. She ironed Marcus's tuxedo a bespoke Tom Ford piece that cost more than most people's cars. She polished his patent leather shoes until they shone like mirrors. She even prepared him a pre-gala detox juice, which he drank without a word of thanks. Marcus, for his part, was practically vibrating with arrogance. He spent hours on the phone, pacing the living room, bragging to his colleagues about the table he had secured near the stage. Yes, right next to Julian Thorne's table. Marcus boasted into his iPhone 16 Pro, swirling a glass of sparkling water. It's going to be a massive night for networking. I'm planning to corner the VP of JP Morgan. It's all about image, you know. You have to look the part to get the part. Lana sat on the sofa, knitting a scarf, a prop she often used to make herself look invisible. She listened to every word. On Friday morning, the day before the gala, Marcus left for work early. "I'll be late tonight," he said, checking his reflection in the hallway mirror. "Final prep for the gala. We're doing a dry run of the networking strategy with the team." "Okay, honey," Lana said meekly. "Do you need me to wait up?" "No. Go to bed." As soon as the elevator doors slid shut, sealing him away, Lana dropped the knitting needles. She moved with efficiency. She went into Marcus's home office, a room she was technically forbidden from entering, to avoid messing up his papers. She wasn't looking for financial records. She already knew he was hiding assets. She was looking for logistics. She opened the trash can next to his desk. It was empty, save for a few shredded papers. Marcus was careful, but he wasn't careful enough with his pockets. She went to the laundry hamper in the master bath and pulled out the charcoal suit trousers he had worn yesterday. She checked the pockets. Nothing. She checked the jacket pocket. There it was, a crumpled receipt from Le Perle and another from Harry Winston. Lana smoothed the receipts out on the marble vanity. Item diamond drop earrings, 4 carats, price $42,000. Item silk lace lingerie set, red, size small. Lana looked at her own reflection. She was a size medium, and she hated red. Her stomach churned, not with heartbreak, but with a cold, confirming fury. The assistant Marcus mentioned wasn't just handling the RSVP. She was the date. Marcus wasn't going alone to protect Lana. He was taking his mistress. He was going to parade another woman around the Obsidian Gala, wearing $40,000 earrings, bought with money from the joint account he told Lana was tight this month. Lana took a photo of the receipts with her phone, then carefully placed them back into the pocket exactly as she found them. That night at midnight, Lana slipped out of the apartment. The doorman, a kind older man named Mr. Henderson, looked surprised to see her. "Mrs. Sterling, is everything all right?" "Just a late-night pharmacy run, Mr. Henderson." She lied smoothly, slipping him a $50 bill. "Mr. Sterling is asleep. No need to mention I went out. I don't want to worry him." Mr. Henderson winked. "My lips are sealed, Mom." Lana took a taxi to Soho. The streets were quiet, the city slick with rain. She arrived at a nondescript steel door in an alleyway behind a row of high-end boutiques. She knocked 3 times, 2 quick, 1 slow. The door swung open. Standing there was Henri, a flamboyant man in his 60s with silver hair and a measuring tape draped around his neck like a priestly stole. "Ilara," he breathed, pulling her into a hug that smelled of fabric stiffener and expensive cigarettes. "You look tired, but the bone structure is still divine." He ushered her inside. The studio was a chaotic wonderland of silk velvet and tulle. Mannequins stood in various states of undress. "So," Henri said, pouring her a glass of champagne, "tell me about this husband of yours, the man who hides a diamond like you in a basement." "He doesn't hide me in a basement, Henri. He hides me in plain sight," Lana said, taking a sip. "He thinks I'm dull. He thinks I'm uncultured. He thinks I'm adequate." "Adequate?" Henri gasped, clutching his chest. You, the woman who speaks 4 languages. The woman who ghost-designed the winter collection for Vogue's Designer of the Year in 2019. He doesn't know any of that, Lana said. When I met him, I wanted a break. I wanted a simple life. I didn't tell him about my family or my past in Paris. I just wanted to be loved for me, not for my connections. And how did that work out? Henri asked dryly. He cheated on me. He's taking his mistress to the gala tomorrow. Henri's eyes narrowed. He walked over to a rack covered in a black sheet. Then we don't just need a dress, darling. We need a weapon. He pulled the sheet away. Lana gasped. It wasn't just a dress. It was a masterpiece. It was a floor-length gown made of a fabric that looked like liquid midnight, a deep, shimmering blue-black that seemed to move on its own. It was strapless with a plunging neckline that was daring but elegant. The structure was architectural, cinching the waist and flaring out into a dramatic train. I call it the Nemesis, Henri said. It has been waiting for someone with the posture to carry it. It requires confidence, Ilara. If you slouch, the dress will wear you. If you stand tall, you will rule the room. Lana ran her hand over the fabric. It felt cool to the touch. I need more than the dress, Henri, Lana said, turning to him. I need the access. Marcus has the invitation. I don't. Henri smirked. Darling, you forget who my clients are. I just finished a fitting for Julian Thorne's mother. I have a +1 pass for the designer's circle table. It's better than VIP. It's family. Lana smiled, a slow, dangerous curve of her lips. Perfect, she whispered. Let's fit. Back at the apartment 3 hours later, Lana crept into bed next to Marcus. He was snoring softly, dreaming of his big night, dreaming of the applause he thought he deserved. Lana stared at the ceiling. She wasn't going to sleep. She was rehearsing. Tomorrow, Lana the housewife would die. And Ilara, the woman who once walked the runways of Milan and brokered art deals in Zurich, would rise from the ashes. The next morning, the day of the gala, the tension in the house was palpable. I'm leaving at 4:00 p.m. for the hotel, Marcus announced over coffee. I need to get ready there. Jessica, my assistant, has the files I need. Of course, Lana said, pouring him coffee. You look nervous, Marcus. I'm not nervous. I'm focused, he snapped. This is a big league, Lana. You wouldn't understand. I hope you have a wonderful time, she said, her voice, dripping with a sweetness he didn't catch, was fake. I hope it's a night you never forget. Yeah. Don't wait up. At 4:00 p.m., Marcus left, carrying his tuxedo bag. He didn't kiss her goodbye. At 4:05 p.m., a team of 3 people arrived at the apartment door. They weren't friends. They were a hair and makeup team sent by Henri. We have 3 hours to turn you into a goddess, the lead stylist said, setting down a massive case of cosmetics. Lana sat in the chair in front of her vanity. She looked at her plain reflection one last time. Do whatever you want, Lana said. But make sure when he looks at me, he regrets the day he was born. The transformation began. The Metropolitan Museum of Art was transformed into a fortress of gold and light. The Obsidian Gala was known for its impossible exclusivity. Outside, the flashbulbs of 300 paparazzi created a strobe light effect that could be seen from Central Park. The red carpet was not red tonight. It was a deep, glossy obsidian black flanked by walls of white roses. Marcus Sterling stepped out of his leased limousine, adjusting his cufflinks. He felt like a king. Beside him, Jessica, his 24-year-old assistant and mistress, smoothed down the front of her red silk lace dress. She looked stunning in a conventional way. Blonde extensions, heavy contouring, and the 4-carat diamond earrings Marcus had bought her dangling from her ears. Smile, baby. Marcus whispered, guiding her hand onto his forearm. "The photographers are to the left." Jessica beamed, soaking up the attention. "They love us, Marcus. We look like a power couple." "We are a power couple," Marcus corrected, his ego swelling as a few cameras flashed in their direction. They weren't A-list not yet, but they were certainly C-list enough to get a few photos on the society pages. They made their way up the massive stone steps, Marcus pausing to shake hands with a minor senator and a hedge fund manager he knew. He felt a rush of adrenaline. He had left his burden at home. Lana was probably asleep by now, or watching some mindless reality TV show, completely unaware that her husband was rubbing shoulders with the masters of the universe. Inside the great hall, the atmosphere was electric. Waiters in white tuxedos drifted through the crowd with trays of champagne and caviar. The air smelled of expensive perfume and money. Marcus led Jessica toward the bar, his eyes scanning the room for Julian Thorne. "Stick close to me," he instructed Jessica. "And don't drink too much. I need you sharp when I introduce you to the board members." I know," Jessica giggled, taking a flute of champagne. "God, look at this place. It's insane. I can't believe you actually brought me." "I bring the people who deserve to be here," Marcus said, taking a sip of his drink. He glanced at the entrance. "The big names usually arrive last. We need to be ready." Suddenly, the atmosphere in the room shifted. It started near the massive entrance doors. The low hum of conversation didn't just stop. It was severed. A hush swept across the great hall like a physical wave. Even the string quartet seemed to falter for a beat. "What's going on?" Jessica asked, standing on her tiptoes. "Is it the president?" Marcus frowned, turning toward the door. "I don't know. Probably a Kardashian or something." But it wasn't a reality star. The massive doors swung open, admitting the cool night air and the distant roar of the crowd outside, which had suddenly turned into a frenzy of screaming. A woman stood at the top of the internal staircase. She was alone save for a silver-haired man in an eccentric velvet suit who walked 2 steps behind her like a royal guard. She wore a dress that defied physics. It was the color of a moonless night, a structure of sharp architectural lines that plunged dangerously low in the front and hugged a silhouette that was nothing short of perfection. The fabric shimmered, as if it were wet, catching the light of the chandeliers. A slit ran up the side, revealing a leg that seemed to go on for miles, ending in a heel encrusted with black crystals. Her hair, usually pulled back in a severe bun, was now a cascading waterfall of dark chocolate waves that rested on one shoulder. Her makeup was sharp, a smoked-out eye, and a blood-red lip that looked dangerous. But it was her jewelry that made the room gasp. Around her neck was the Star of the North, a necklace of sapphires and diamonds that was rumored to be in a private vault in Geneva. It wasn't just expensive, it was priceless. Marcus squinted. The woman looked familiar, the curve of her jaw, the way she held her head high. It was hauntingly familiar. "Who is that?" Jessica whispered, her voice laced with sudden, sharp jealousy. "She looks like a villain from a movie." The woman began to descend the stairs. She didn't walk, she glided. Every step was deliberate, a masterclass in poise. The crowd parted for her, naturally creating a wide path, as if she were royalty. As she reached the bottom step, the light hit her face, fully. Marcus dropped his champagne glass. It shattered on the marble floor, the sound exploding in the silence like a gunshot. Champagne splashed onto his tuxedo trousers and onto the hem of Jessica's dress. But Marcus didn't move. He couldn't breathe. His brain was trying to reject the information. His eyes were feeding it. It's not her. It can't be her. She's at home. She's in her pajamas. She's a mouse. But the woman turned her head slightly. her dark eyes scanning the room with a look of bored superiority. For a split second, her gaze locked onto his. There was no warmth, no recognition of him as her husband. There was only a cold, predatory amusement. It was Lana. But it wasn't the Lana he knew. This was a stranger wearing his wife's face. "Marcus," Jessica hissed, wiping champagne off her leg. "What the hell is wrong with you? You ruined my dress." Marcus couldn't speak. He pointed a shaking finger at the woman in the black dress. That's who?" Jessica snapped, looking at the woman who was now being approached by 3 different billionaires. "That's my wife," Marcus whispered, the color draining from his face. Jessica froze. She looked at Lana, then down at her own red lingerie-style dress, then back at Lana. "The mouse. That is the mouse you told me about? The one who clips coupons?" Marcus didn't answer. He watched as Henri, the silver-haired man, leaned in and whispered something to Lana. She threw her head back and laughed, a rich, throaty sound that Marcus had never heard in 5 years of marriage. The room was buzzing now. Everyone was asking the same question. "Who is she?" Marcus felt a cold sweat break out on his forehead. He had told everyone his wife was sick. He had told everyone she was socially awkward. And now she was standing in the center of the most exclusive room in New York, looking like she owned the building. "I have to stop this," Marcus stammered. Panic was setting in. If his client saw her, if they realized he had lied, if they realized this was the woman he was cheating on. "She's going to make a scene," Marcus said more to himself than Jessica. "She's followed me here to embarrass me. She's going to scream at us." He started to push through the crowd, his face red with a mix of fear and anger. He had to control her. He had to get her out of here before she opened her mouth. "Lana!" he hissed under his breath, shoving past a waiter. But he couldn't get close. As soon as he moved within 20 feet of her, a wall of people blocked him. Not security guards, but admirers. "Excuse me," a tall man said, blocking Marcus's path. It was Carter Vance, the CEO of Vance Media, a man Marcus had been trying to get a meeting with for 3 years. Carter didn't even look at Marcus. His eyes were fixed on Lana. "Wait your turn, pal. We're all trying to meet her." Marcus stood stunned. He was being boxed out of his own wife's orbit by the very people he was desperate to impress. He watched helpless as Lana accepted a glass of champagne. She didn't look nervous. She didn't look like she was looking for him. She looked like she was exactly where she belonged. And then the ultimate blow landed. Julian Thorne, the host of the gala, the billionaire tech mogul who was notoriously reclusive, emerged from the VIP section. He walked straight past the senator, straight past the movie stars, and walked directly to Lana. The room went silent again. Julian Thorne never greeted guests personally. Julian stopped in front of Lana. He smiled a genuine warm smile. He took her gloved hand and bowed low, kissing her knuckles. "Ilara," Julian said, his voice carrying in the silent hall. "You finally returned to us." Lana smiled, and for the first time that night, her face softened into genuine affection. "Hello, Julian. It's been a long time." "Too long," Julian said, tucking her arm into his. "Come, my table is waiting. We have much to discuss." He led her away up the stairs toward the exclusive Royal Circle balcony, where only 5 tables were set. Henri followed them, shooting a quick, distinct glare directly at Marcus before disappearing up the stairs. Marcus stood in the puddle of his own spilled drink, his mouth agape. "Ilara," Jessica whispered, clutching Marcus's arm. "Who is Ilara? I thought her name was Lana." Marcus felt like the floor was tilting. I don't know." For the next hour, Marcus Sterling was in purgatory. He dragged Jessica to their assigned table, which was in the back corner of the room near the kitchen doors. It was a humiliation he hadn't noticed before, but now, staring up at the VIP balcony, where his wife was seated at the right hand of Julian Thorne, the location of his table felt like a slap in the face. He couldn't focus on his networking. Every time he tried to speak to a potential client, their eyes drifted upward. "Is that the French designer?" one banker asked, pointing his fork toward the balcony. "The woman next to Thorne, I heard. She's royalty in hiding." "No," another guest corrected. "My wife says that's Lara Vance. She used to run the European art markets before she vanished 5 years ago. A genius, a ghost." Marcus gripped his steak knife so hard his knuckles turned white. Art markets. Royalty Lana was a woman who got excited when strawberries were on sale at the grocery store. Lana was a woman who mended his socks. "Marcus, talk to me," Jessica whined, poking at her salad. "Everyone is looking at her. You said I was going to be the most beautiful woman here." "Shut up, Jessica," Marcus snapped his voice, venomous. Jessica recoiled, her eyes tearing up. "Don't talk to me like that. I didn't know your wife was her." "She isn't her," Marcus hissed, leaning across the table. "She's playing a game. She's spent our savings on a dress and she's conned her way into VIP. I'm going to put a stop to it." He couldn't take it anymore. The mystery, the whispers, the way Julian Thorne was laughing at something Lana said. It was driving him insane. He needed to reassert control. He needed to remind Lana that she was his wife, and she answered to him. He stood up, ignoring Jessica's protests, and marched toward the stairs leading to the VIP balcony. A large security guard with a headset stepped in front of him. "Sir, this area is restricted." "I am Marcus Sterling," he demanded, puffing out his chest. "That woman sitting with Mr. Thorne is my wife. I need to speak with her immediately. It is a family emergency." The guard hesitated. He touched his earpiece. "Mr. Sterling claims relation to the guest of honor. Says it's an emergency." A pause. Then the guard looked at Marcus with a strange expression, pity mixed with amusement. "Mr. Thorne says to let him up." Marcus smirked. "Got you." He straightened his jacket and walked up the stairs. He was going to drag her out of there by her ear if he had to. He would tell everyone she was off her meds. He would spin this. When he reached the balcony, the air was thinner, cooler. The table was draped in black velvet. Sitting there were the titans of industry, the CEO of Google, the Duchess of York, Julian Thorne, and Lana. They all stopped talking as Marcus approached. Lana held a crystal glass of red wine. She didn't look up as he arrived at the table. She was listening intently to the Duchess. "Lana," Marcus said, his voice booming. He tried to sound authoritative, but it came out shrill. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" The table went deadly silent. Julian Thorne set down his fork. His eyes were like chips of ice. Lana slowly turned her head. She looked at Marcus, then down at his shoes, then back up to his face. Her expression was one of mild confusion. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice smooth and cultured, lacking the timid stutter she usually had around him. "Have we met?" Marcus's jaw dropped. "Have we met? I'm your husband. I'm Marcus." "Stop this charade right now, Lana. You're embarrassing yourself. Look at you dressed up like a showgirl. Come home. Now." He reached out to grab her arm. Before his fingers could graze her skin, Julian Thorne's hand shot out and gripped Marcus's wrist. Julian didn't look like a fighter, but his grip was iron. "Touch her," Julian said calmly, "and I will have you removed from this building by the window." Marcus yanked his hand back, rubbing his wrist. "She's my wife. Tell him Lana." Lana took a slow sip of wine. She set the glass down and looked at Julian. "I have a husband, Julian, that is true. But he is a man who is currently at home waiting for me. He is a man who values loyalty. He certainly isn't this sweaty, shouting man who smells of cheap cologne and desperation. She looked Marcus dead in the eye. "I don't know who you are, sir, but you seem unwell." You, Marcus stammered. He looked around the table. The Duchess looked horrified by him. The Google CEO was recording it on his phone. "Lana, don't do this." Marcus pleaded, his anger turning to fear. "Jessica is downstairs. I can explain everything." Lana's eyebrow raised a fraction of an inch. "Jessica, the assistant, the one who wears red." She turned to Henri, who was standing nearby. "Henri, didn't we see a girl in a red dress spilling champagne on herself downstairs? It was quite tragic." "Indeed, madame," Henri said dryly. "Very discount." The table chuckled. Marcus felt the blood rushing to his ears. She was denying him. She was erasing him. "You're insane," Marcus whispered. "Wait until we get home. I'll cancel your credit cards. I'll throw you out on the street." Julian Thorne stood up. He was 6'4", towering over Marcus. "Mr. Sterling," Julian said, "I think it is time you left, but before you go, you should know something." "What?" Marcus spat. "You work for Titan Investment Group, correct? I'm the CFO," Marcus said defiantly. "Not anymore," Julian said simply. "I just bought Titan Investment Group. The deal closed 10 minutes ago. My first act as owner was to restructure the leadership." Julian smiled a shark-like grin. "You're fired, Marcus. And given the audit my team is about to run on your expense accounts, specifically regarding jewelry purchases, I imagine you'll be hearing from the police very soon." Marcus felt his knees give way. He grabbed the back of a chair to steady himself. You can't." "I can," Julian said. "Now get out of my sight. You're ruining Ilara's evening." Security guards appeared from the shadows, grabbing Marcus by the arms. As they dragged him away, kicking and screaming, he looked back one last time. Lana wasn't watching him leave. She had already turned back to the Duchess, laughing at a joke, the diamonds around her neck sparkling like stars. She hadn't just left him. She had ascended. The rain outside the Metropolitan Museum of Art was torrential, a stark contrast to the climate-controlled perfection inside. Marcus Sterling was thrown literally out of the side exit by 2 security guards who handled him like a bag of trash. He landed on his hands and knees in a puddle of muddy water, his tuxedo jacket splashing into the grime. The heavy steel door slammed shut behind him, locking with a definitive clank. Marcus gasped for air, scrambling to his feet. He was soaked instantly. The adrenaline that had fueled his confrontation upstairs had drained away, replaced by a cold, shaking nausea. "Marcus!" A shrill voice shrieked from the darkness. He turned to see Jessica standing under the awning of a service entrance, shivering. Her red dress was ruined, dark spots of rain soaking into the silk. Her mascara was running down her cheeks in black rivulets. "You got us kicked out," she screamed, stomping her heel. "Do you know who was watching everyone? Someone posted a video on TikTok already. It has 10,000 views, Marcus. I'm a laughing stock." Marcus wiped the mud from his hands onto his pants. "Shut up, Jessica. I need to think." "Think you need to fix this," she yelled. "Get the limo. We're leaving. I want to go to the St. Regis. I need a bath and room service." Marcus patted his pockets. His phone was there. His wallet was there. But his pride was gone. He pulled out his phone to call the driver of the limousine service he had hired for the night, a service that cost $200 an hour. He dialed the number. "This is Marcus Sterling. Bring the car around to the side exit, now." "I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling." The dispatcher's voice was cool and detached. "Your reservation has been cancelled." "Cancelled by who?" "By the credit card holder. The payment was declined and reversed about 5 minutes ago. The driver has been instructed to return to the garage. I am the credit card holder, Marcus roared into the phone. My card has a $50,000 limit. Not anymore, sir. Have a good night. The line went dead. Marcus stared at the phone. Julian. It had to be Julian Thorne. He said he bought Titan Investment Group. He must have frozen the corporate cards. But the personal cards, how did he touch those? Where is the car? Jessica demanded, her teeth chattering. It's delayed. Marcus lied, his voice trembling. We'll take an Uber. An Uber. Jessica looked at him, as if he had suggested they ride a donkey. I am wearing an $8,000 dress. Just get in, Marcus snapped, as a beat-up Toyota Camry pulled up to the curb. The ride to the hotel was silent and suffocating. The smell of wet wool and cheap air freshener filled the car. Marcus frantically checked his banking app. Account status frozen, pending audit. Savings account frozen, pending audit. Checking account balance, $42.50. He felt bile rise in his throat. He had spent the last of his liquidity on the deposit for the gala table and the earrings for Jessica. He was relying on his quarterly bonus, which was due to hit on Monday. But if he was fired, there was no bonus. The Uber pulled up to the curb of 432 Park Avenue. Why are we here? Jessica asked, confused. I thought we were going to the hotel. I don't want to run into your crazy wife. I need to get my other cards, Marcus muttered. And my passport. Just wait here. He marched into the lobby, dripping wet. He looked like a drowned rat, a far cry from the master of the universe who had walked out hours ago. Mr. Henderson, the doorman who had worked the night shift for 10 years, was standing at the podium. He watched Marcus approach with a blank expression. Evening, Mr. Henderson. Marcus said, trying to sound authoritative, despite the water dripping from his nose. I need the elevator key. Mr. Henderson didn't move. He didn't reach for the panel. He simply crossed his arms. I can't do that, Mr. Sterling. Marcus stopped. Excuse me, I live here. Open the damn elevator. Mrs. Sterling called, Mr. Henderson said calmly. She informed the building management that there is a security threat involving an estranged spouse. The locks on the penthouse have been changed electronically. Your key fob has been deactivated. Estranged spouse, I'm her husband. My name is on the lease. Mr. Henderson reached under the desk and pulled out a file. Actually, sir, I was instructed to give you this. It's a copy of the deed. Marcus snatched the paper. He scanned it frantically. Owner, the Sterling Trust. Trustee, Elara Vance. Beneficiary, Marcus Sterling, revocable. Revocable, Marcus whispered. He looked up. I don't understand. I paid the mortgage. I signed the checks. You signed checks to a holding company, sir. Mr. Henderson said, his voice dropping to a sympathetic but firm tone. Mrs. Sterling owns the building, not the apartment. The building. Marcus felt the room spin. She owns 432 Park Avenue, the entire skyscraper. You need to leave Mr. Sterling. Mr. Henderson said, nodding toward the door. Before I call the police, you are trespassing. Marcus stumbled backward. He turned and ran out the revolving doors back into the rain. He ran to the Uber. Jessica rolled down the window. Well, did you get the money? Jessica! Marcus gasped, leaning on the car door. We have a problem. I can't get in. We need to go to your place. Just for tonight. Jessica looked at him. She looked at the desperate, wet panic in his eyes. She looked at the phone in her hand, which was blowing up with texts from her friends, linking the video of him getting thrown out of the gala. OMG, is that your boyfriend getting dragged out by security, LOL. He's fired. Twitter says he's being investigated for fraud. Jessica looked at Marcus. The illusion was gone. The power, the money, the prestige, it was all smoke. And without the smoke, Marcus was just a mean 45-year-old middle manager with a receding hairline and a bad temper. "My place is small, Marcus," she said coldly. "There's no room for you." "What, Jessica? I bought you those earrings, I bought you that dress. I just need a place to sleep." Jessica reached up and unclipped the diamond earrings. She tossed them onto the wet pavement. "Keep them. I checked the receipt you left on the dresser. They're lab-grown. You told me they were natural." "Jessica." "Driver, go," she said. The window rolled up. The Uber peeled away, splashing muddy water onto Marcus's legs. He stood alone on Park Avenue. He had no home. He had no job. He had no girlfriend. He had 42 to 50 in his bank account. And somewhere high above the city in a penthouse he had treated like a hotel his wife was sleeping in a bed he was no longer allowed to touch. Marcus walked. He walked for 3 hours. He ended up in a 24-hour diner in Hell's Kitchen, nursing a cup of black coffee he paid for, with loose change he found in his jacket pocket. He sat in the booth, shivering, staring at the neon sign across the street. And how had the mouse become the lion? How had the woman who clipped coupons for pasta sauce turned out to be the owner of the skyline? He replayed the last 5 years in his head. The way she never talked about her family. The way she never complained about his long hours. The way she simply waited. He realized with a sickening jolt that she hadn't been waiting for him to succeed. She had been waiting to see if he was worth saving. And tonight, he had proven he wasn't. The morning sun rose over Manhattan, indifferent to Marcus Sterling's ruin. He had spent the night curled on a bench in a subway station, clutching his tuxedo jacket like a security blanket. At 8:00 a.m., his phone buzzed. It was the only asset he had left. Unknown number. "Hello?" "Mr. Sterling." A crisp female voice answered. "This is Abigail Roth, General Counsel for Vance International. Ms. Vance has authorized a brief meeting to finalize the terms of your separation and explain the current status of your housing and employment. Please report to 1 World Trade Center Suite 8800 at 9:00 a.m. sharp." Marcus used his last remaining digital cash for the subway. He tried to straighten his stained shirt in the lobby reflection, but there was no hiding the truth. He looked like a man who had lost everything. The elevator ride to the 88th floor felt like an ascent to judgment. The doors opened into a lobby that smelled of white tea and intimidation. The logo on the wall was simple, Vance Inti. He was ushered into a corner conference room with floor-to-ceiling glass walls overlooking the harbor. Sitting at the head of the table wasn't a lawyer. It was Lana. She wore a cream-colored power suit, her hair blow-dried, straight and sleek. She looked rested. She looked expensive. She looked nothing like the woman who had made him rack of lamb 2 nights ago. To her right sat Julian Thorne. To her left was Henry the designer, idly sketching in a notebook. Marcus stood at the door, gripping the back of a chair to steady his trembling legs. "Sit down, Marcus," Lana said. Her voice was calm, devoid of the anger he expected. It was the indifference that cut deepest. "Lana, Ilara," she corrected gently. "My name is Ilara Vance. Lana was my middle name. Sterling was an experiment." "An experiment," Marcus whispered, sinking into the chair. "Our marriage was a test." "No," Ilara said, sliding a thick folder across the mahogany table. "Our meeting 6 years ago was a coincidence, but everything after that was a hope." She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto his. "When I met you, I was tired of being the heiress to the Vance conglomerate. Every man I dated wanted a seat on the board or a loan. You didn't know who I was. You were just a junior analyst who bought me a coffee. I wanted to see if I could be loved for me, the quiet girl who liked knitting, not for my portfolio. Marcus blinked, confused. But my success, my promotion to CFO, the apartment. I bought the building, Marcus, Ilara said, gesturing to the skyline. I set your rent at a fraction of the market rate, so you would feel like a provider. And the promotion, I own a majority stake in Titan Investment Group. I instructed the board to promote you. I wanted you to feel strong, thinking that security would make you kind. The air left the room. Marcus felt suffocated. Every victory he had celebrated, every moment of arrogance, had been subsidized by the wife he called a mouse. I built a sandbox for you to play king in... Ilara continued, her voice hardening. But money didn't make you kind. It made you cruel. You hid me. You shamed me. And then you used the money I secretly funneled into your accounts to buy lingerie for your assistant. She didn't need to shout. The facts were violent enough. I didn't know, Marcus stammered. Ilara, please. Ignorance is not a defense. Julian Thorne interjected, his voice like gravel. It's a liability, and frankly, Marcus, you're out of time. What happens now? Marcus asked, his voice hollow. You ruin me. I don't need to, Ilara said, standing up. You did that yourself. The audit at Titan is complete. You didn't just spend your bonus on those diamond earrings for Jessica. You dipped into client funds, assuming you could replace it later. That is federal wire fraud. Marcus went pale. He thought no one would notice the transfer for a few days. I am not pressing charges for the fraud against me, Ilara said, walking toward the door. But the SEC Julian can't stop them. The police are waiting in the lobby. She paused, looking back at him one last time. There was no hate in her eyes, just a profound, exhausting pity. You have your freedom, Marcus. You always wanted to be a bachelor billionaire. Now you're halfway there. You're a bachelor. Henri, she added, ensure he leaves. If he loiters, call security. With pleasure, madame, Henri said, snapping his notebook shut. Ilara walked out, her heels clicking rhythmically on the marble floor. She didn't look back. She had a meeting with the Prime Minister of Italy, and she was already late. Marcus sat alone in the silence of the glass room, staring at the city of dreams he had tried to conquer. He had been sleeping next to the sun, and he had only just realized it as he began to burn. 6 months had passed since the night of the Obsidian Gala, a period Marcus Sterling would forever refer to as the humiliation. The 18-month prison sentence for wire fraud was shortened due to good behavior and Ilara's unwillingness to testify further, but the restitution order had stripped him bare. He emerged owing hundreds of thousands a liability to the world he once dominated. Now he was just Marcus, not Marcus Sterling, CFO. It was a cold Tuesday afternoon in November. Marcus adjusted the collar of his ill-fitting bright green uniform. The shirt stained with milk foam and the scent of burnt coffee was the new measure of his worth. Order up soy latte, extra foam, table 3. The manager, a 20-year-old named Kyle, yelled. Marcus grabbed the cup and walked it over to a group of young finance analysts. They were dressed in sharp suits, laughing over an iPad displaying stock tickers. He recognized the confident swagger. It was his younger self. Here you go, Marcus muttered, placing the cup down. One of the analysts didn't look up, only waved his hand dismissively. I said oat milk, buddy. This smells like soy. Take it back and get it right. Marcus's hands trembled. The insult delivered with casual cruelty felt like a physical blow. It was the same tone, the same dismissal he had used on Lana for 5 years, whenever she failed to meet his standards. He was living the karma of every condescending glance and every callous word he had ever spoken to his wife. I apologize, Marcus stammered, grabbing the cup. I'll fix it. You better, the young man snapped, already turning back to his colleagues. It's not rocket science. Marcus wiped his hands on his apron, feeling the familiar burning shame. He knew he deserved this. Every rude customer, every moment of utter invisibility, was a mirror reflecting the man he had been. Sterling, back to work, Kyle barked. As Marcus walked behind the counter, the television mounted in the corner flashed a familiar face. The volume was up slightly, overriding the cafe's indie music. And in cultural news, the elusive fashion mogul and philanthropist Ilara Vance has just announced the grand opening of the Sterling Foundation. Marcus froze. The name Sterling Foundation hit him like a physical shockwave. On the screen, Ilara was standing at a podium in front of a sleek, modern building. She was radiant in a tailored white suit, every inch the powerful figure Marcus had glimpsed at the gala. The Sterling Foundation, ironically named after her ex-husband, is dedicated to providing financial literacy and legal aid to spouses trapped in financially abusive marriages. Ms. Vance stated that she wanted to turn a painful chapter of her life into a beacon of hope for others. The camera zoomed in on Ilara's face. A reporter shouted a final question. Ms. Vance, do you harbor any ill will toward your ex-husband? Ilara smiled. It wasn't a smile of vengeance, but of profound peace. No, she said, her voice carrying clearly. I don't have any feelings toward him at all. He taught me that I am strong enough to stand alone. For that lesson I am grateful. But I have moved on. The past is a closed book. She turned to the tall, kind-looking architect standing beside her, and they shared a soft, knowing look. Marcus felt the truth of her words settle in his heart. She had used his name to symbolize her cause. He wasn't the billionaire CEO. He was the cautionary tale. The punishment wasn't the poverty or the public shame. The punishment was realizing that his presence had been her burden, and his absence was her absolute, unburdened joy. He had lost everything because he never appreciated the immense fortune he already had. Sterling, Kyle yelled, shattering the moment. Get that oat milk done. Marcus slowly turned back to the counter. His shoulders slumped. He grabbed the cup. He was just a small man in a green uniform, lost in a city that had forgotten his name, serving coffee to the kind of men he used to be. The sun had set on Marcus Sterling, and now it was simply Ilara's time to shine. And that is the story of how Marcus Sterling learned the hardest lesson of all: you never truly know who you are sleeping next to. He spent 5 years trying to impress strangers, only to realize he was married to the most powerful person in the room, and he treated her like she was nothing. It's a brutal reminder that arrogance is a blindfold. Marcus thought he was the main character, but in reality, he was just the villain in Lana's origin story. What do you think? Did Marcus deserve his fate, or was Ilara's revenge too harsh? And have you ever been underestimated by someone who later regretted it? I want to hear your stories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of karma and justice, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story. We upload new drama every week. Thanks for listening.